Hello there, and welcome. I am truly glad you decided to join me today for this deep dive into a philosophy that might, at first glance, seem a bit intense, but is ultimately one of the most liberating ways to look at your life. We are going to explore a perspective that challenges the way most of us think about our daily routines, our goals, and our personal power. The main purpose of the book we're discussing is to show you that the life you want, the freedom you crave, is not found by taking the easy way out. In fact, it is quite the opposite. This work serves as a field manual for the mind and the body, providing a blueprint on how to harness the power of your own will to overcome the weaknesses that hold you back. It's about understanding that your greatest enemy isn't the world around you, but the voice inside your head that tells you to sleep in, to take a break, or to settle for good enough. As we walk through these ideas, we're going to look at a few high-level concepts that form the backbone of this philosophy. First, we'll look at the central paradox, how the very act of restricting yourself through discipline actually opens up a world of possibilities. Second, we'll explore the idea of total ownership, not just of your successes, but of every single failure and moment of weakness. Finally, we'll touch upon the necessity of physical and mental preparation, treating your body and mind as tools that must be sharpened daily to be effective. In his book, Discipline Equals Freedom, author Jocko Willink doesn't offer shortcuts or hacks. He offers a path of resistance because he believes that resistance is what makes us strong. It's a message that is both a wake-up call and a steady hand on the shoulder, guiding you toward the version of yourself you know you can be. It is about moving past the excuses and the why of your situation to focus entirely on the how of your progress. I'm excited to share these principles with you because they have the potential to change the way you wake up in the morning and the way you view every challenge that comes your way. It is a journey towards self-mastery that starts with a single, disciplined choice. Before we get into the core of the summary, if you find value in these insights, please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to help others find this path as well. The Path of the Warrior, a comprehensive summary. To understand the core of this philosophy, we have to start with the concept that defines the entire work, the discipline-freedom paradox. On the surface, these two words seem like opposites. We often think of discipline as a set of rules, a rigid structure, or a cage that prevents us from doing what we want. We think of freedom as the absence of rules, the ability to do whatever we want, whenever we want. However, the book argues that this common view is actually a trap. When you lack discipline, you aren't actually free. Instead, you are a slave to your impulses, your moods, and your physical desires. If you don't have the discipline to manage your time, you are never free to pursue your true passions because you are always catching up or wasting hours on distractions. If you don't have the discipline to manage your health, you eventually lose the freedom to move, to play, or even to live a long life. The core idea here is that by imposing strict rules on yourself, by being disciplined, you create the space and the resources necessary to enjoy real freedom. Discipline is the price of admission for a life of independence and strength. This is important because it shifts the focus from external circumstances to internal control. It tells us that we don't have to wait for the world to give us freedom, we can build it ourselves through our daily actions. It's the difference between being a leaf blown about by the wind and being the wind itself. By choosing to do the things we don't necessarily want to do, like waking up early or working out when we're tired, we are actually buying ourselves more time, more energy, and more mental clarity in the long run. A simple way to look at this is through the lens of personal finances. If you lack the discipline to follow a strict budget, you might feel free in the moment to buy whatever you want. But very quickly, that lack of discipline leads to debt, stress, and the loss of your freedom to choose where you live or what job you take. On the other hand, the disciplined person who tracks every penny eventually gains the ultimate freedom of financial independence. Now we move to the next point, which takes this idea of discipline and applies it directly to the mindset required to face the challenges of daily life. The next major concept is the necessity of the path of most resistance. In a world that is constantly trying to sell us easy solutions, quick fixes, and life hacks, this book argues that the hard way is actually the only way to achieve lasting results. The easy way is a lie. It's a downward slope that leads to weakness and regret. To build strength, whether that is physical strength in the gym or mental strength in your professional life, you must intentionally seek out challenges. This idea is vital because it addresses the human tendency to seek comfort. We are biologically wired to conserve energy and avoid pain. While that served our ancestors well, in the modern world, it leads to stagnation. By choosing the path of most resistance, you are training your mind to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. You are building what the book describes as mental callus. When you consistently choose the harder option, the regular challenges of life start to feel easy. You become resilient. You become the kind of person who doesn't break when things get tough because you've spent your whole life practicing for the struggle. Think about a simple daily choice, like taking the elevator or the stairs. The elevator is the path of least resistance. It requires nothing from you. The stairs are the path of most resistance. They require effort, they might make you sweat, and they take more time. But by choosing the stairs every single time, you are making a small deposit into your bank of discipline. You are telling your brain that you are the kind of person who does the work, not the person who looks for the shortcut. Over time, those small choices compound into a formidable character. Now we move to the next point, where we transition from the internal mindset to the external reality of taking absolute control over your environment and your time. This brings us to the concept of extreme ownership of your own life and your own schedule. The book makes it clear that there are no excuses. We often blame our boss, our family, the economy, or even the weather for our lack of progress. But this philosophy demands that you stop looking outside for someone to blame and start looking in the mirror. You are the commander of your own life. Everything that happens to you, and everything that fails to happen for you, is your responsibility. This is a heavy burden, but it is also incredibly empowering. If everything is your fault, it means you have the power to fix everything. When you stop being a victim of your circumstances, you become the master of them. This ownership extends down to the very seconds of your day. The book emphasizes that time is the most valuable resource we have, and it is slipping away every moment. Being disciplined with your time means treating every minute like a precious commodity. It means having a plan, sticking to it, and refusing to let procrastination or laziness steal your life from you. The importance of this cannot be overstated. Without ownership, you are a passenger in your own life. You are waiting for things to get better, rather than making them better. By taking ownership, you gain the authority to change your trajectory. It starts with the smallest things, owning your mistakes at work, owning the fact that you didn't work out today, and owning the fact that you stayed up too late scrolling through your phone. Once you own those failures, you can finally begin the work of correcting them. For example, if a project at work fails, the average person looks for someone else to point the finger at. They blame a lack of communication or a teammate's mistake. But the disciplined individual says, "It's my fault. I didn't communicate clearly enough, and I didn't check in on my teammate." By taking that ownership, they ensure the mistake never happens again, and they earn the respect of everyone around them. Now we move to the next point, moving from the philosophical application of ownership into the practical, physical requirements for maintaining this level of discipline. One of the most practical sections of the book focuses on the physical preparation required to sustain a disciplined life. The author argues that the mind and the body are not separate, they are a single system. If your body is weak, your mind will eventually follow. Therefore, physical fitness is not an optional hobby, it is a mandatory requirement for anyone seeking freedom. This involves a rigorous approach to exercise, sleep, and nutrition. The reasoning here is straightforward. Your body is the vehicle through which you interact with the world. If that vehicle is broken or poorly maintained, you cannot perform at your peak. Exercise is seen as a way to prime the engine. It's about more than just looking good, it's about being capable. It's about having the stamina to work long hours, the strength to handle physical tasks, and the mental clarity that comes from a healthy cardiovascular system. The book promotes a functional approach to fitness, being able to run, jump, climb, and lift, ensuring that you are ready for any situation life throws at you. Nutrition is treated with the same level of discipline. Food is fuel, not a reward. The book advocates for a diet that is based on what our bodies were evolved to eat, avoiding the processed sugars and carbohydrates that lead to energy crashes and long-term health issues. The importance of this lies in the consistency of your energy. When you eat poorly, you feel poorly, and when you feel poorly, your discipline is the first thing to go. By maintaining a disciplined diet, you keep your war machine running smoothly. A relatable example of this is the afternoon slump many people experience. After a heavy, sugary lunch, most people feel a wave of lethargy around 2 or 3 in the afternoon. They lose focus and their productivity drops. A disciplined person who views food as fuel avoids that trap, maintaining a steady level of focus and energy throughout the entire day, while others are reaching for a third cup of coffee. Now we move to the next point, which examines one of the most specific and famous tactical applications of this entire philosophy, the battle against the snooze button. This brings us to one of the most practical and immediate applications of the entire philosophy, the war against the morning. The book is very specific about the early morning hours, often citing 4:30 a.m. as the time to start. The logic isn't just about being productive 4 more hours, it's about winning the first battle of the day. When you wake up early, you are making a choice to get ahead of the world. You are choosing to start your day on your terms, rather than reacting to the demands of others. This is important because of what happens in your mind when that alarm goes off. There is a negotiator inside your head. That voice tells you that you worked hard yesterday, that you didn't sleep well, or that 5 more minutes of sleep will make a difference. By waking up immediately and refusing to hit the snooze button, you are silencing that negotiator. You are asserting dominance over your own impulses. The book suggests that if you lose the first battle of the day against a plastic clock, you have already set a precedent of losing for the rest of the day. The value of this early start is psychological. When you get up before the sun, before the emails start coming in, and before the rest of the world is awake, you have a sense of calm and control. You have already accomplished a physical workout or made progress on a project before most people have even opened their eyes. This creates a psychological momentum that carries you through the rest of your tasks with a sense of superiority over your own previous weaknesses. A simple example of this is the snooze button itself. It is a button that serves no positive purpose. It doesn't give you restful sleep, it only gives you fragmented, low-quality rest that leaves you feeling groggier. By removing the option to snooze, you simplify your life. The alarm goes off, and you get up. There is no debate, no negotiation, and no hesitation. Now we move to the next point, which explores how we handle the inevitable setbacks and failures that occur once the day is in full swing. When things go wrong, and they will, the book introduces a powerful, one-word response: good. This isn't about blind optimism or pretending that bad things aren't happening. It is about a fundamental shift in perspective. When a project is canceled, when a mission fails, or when you get injured, the response good means that you have been given an opportunity to find a solution, to learn a lesson, or to grow stronger in another area. This mindset is vital because it prevents the downward spiral of self-pity and victimhood. Most people, when faced with a setback, waste time and energy complaining about it or wondering why me. The good mindset cuts through that noise. It forces you to look for the tactical advantage in any situation. If you didn't get the promotion you wanted, good, now you have more time to sharpen your skills and become so good they can't ignore you. If you get injured and can't run, good, now you can focus on upper body strength or mobility work you've been neglecting. The core idea is that every challenge contains a seed of benefit if you are disciplined enough to look for it. It's about being anti-fragile, the idea that you don't just survive stress and chaos, but you actually get better because of it. By adopting this attitude, you become impossible to defeat mentally because you view every obstacle as fuel for your progress. A relatable example would be a technical failure during a major presentation. Instead of panicking or apologizing profusely, the disciplined person thinks, good. This gives me a chance to show that I know this material well enough to explain it without slides. They use the opportunity to demonstrate poise and deep knowledge, turning a potential disaster into a display of competence. Now we move to the next point, focusing on the meticulous preparation required to ensure that you don't give yourself any excuses to fail. To sustain a life of discipline, the book argues that you must engage in preemptive preparation. This means setting yourself up for success before the battle even begins. Discipline is often a limited resource throughout the day. You use it up as you make difficult decisions. Therefore, you must eliminate the need for willpower by automating your environment. The more decisions you make ahead of time, the fewer opportunities you have to make the wrong choice when you're tired or stressed. The importance of this lies in the removal of friction. If you have to search for your gym clothes in the morning, that is a point of friction. It's a moment where your mind can negotiate and say, "I can't find my shoes, I'll just skip it today." By laying out your clothes, packing your bag, and prepping your meals the night before, you remove those excuses. You are essentially pre-ordering your future actions. You make the disciplined choice when your mind is clear and calm, so that when you are tired, you just follow the plan you already laid out. This level of preparation also applies to your professional life. It means having your to-do list ready before you leave the office the previous day. It means knowing exactly what your big 3 tasks are for the next morning. When you show up, you don't have to wonder what to do, you just execute. This creates a high level of efficiency and ensures that your energy is spent on the work itself, not on the process of deciding what to work on. Think about the simple act of preparing your coffee or your breakfast the night before. It might only take 5 minutes, but it saves you 5 minutes of decision-making in the morning when your brain is still waking up. It's a small act of discipline that ensures your morning routine is a series of successes rather than a series of hurdles. Now we move to the next point, shifting the focus to how a disciplined individual interacts with their own ego and the people around them. A major theme in the book is that ego is the enemy of discipline. While it takes a certain amount of confidence to pursue a difficult path, an unchecked ego will eventually lead to your downfall. If you believe you are too good for a certain task, or if you think you have nothing left to learn, you have stopped being disciplined. Discipline requires a constant, honest assessment of your own weaknesses. You have to be willing to look at yourself in the mirror and admit where you are failing. This is critical because the moment you stop being humble, you stop growing. The most disciplined people are often the most humble because they know how much work is still left to be done. They don't compare themselves to others to feel superior, they compare themselves to the best version of who they could be. Humility allows you to take criticism, to listen to others, and to learn from your mistakes. If your ego is in the way, you will get defensive when someone points out a flaw, and you will miss the opportunity to fix it. Furthermore, the book emphasizes that discipline is not just for you, it's for the team. Whether that team is your family, your coworkers, or your community, your discipline sets the standard. When you are disciplined, you inspire those around you to be better. Conversely, when you let your ego take control and you start slacking off, you give everyone else permission to do the same. Leadership, at its core, is the highest form of discipline because it requires you to put the needs of the mission and the team above your own desires. For example, imagine a leader who is willing to do the grunt work alongside their team, cleaning up after a project or staying late to help someone catch up. Their ego doesn't tell them the work is beneath them. By doing it, they prove their commitment to the mission and earn the unwavering respect of their team. They lead through the discipline of their actions, not the authority of their title. Now we move to the next point, where we look at the concept of consistency over intensity and how to maintain this lifestyle for the long haul. A common mistake people make when they decide to get disciplined is that they try to change everything at once with extreme intensity. They go from no exercise to 3 hours a day, or from a poor diet to a total fast. The book argues that this is a recipe for failure. Real discipline is not a sprint, it's a marathon. It is the steady, daily application of effort over a long period. It is better to do a 30-minute workout every single day for a year than to do 5-hour workouts for 2 weeks and then quit because you are burnt out. The importance of consistency is that it builds momentum. Momentum is a powerful force that makes discipline easier over time. When you do something every day, it becomes a habit, a part of who you are. The book emphasizes that you should stay on the path. Even on the days when you are sick, or tired, or traveling, you do something. You don't have to break records every day, but you must not break the chain of discipline. This builds a psychological armor that makes you incredibly resilient. This approach also helps in managing the dark days, those times when you feel like your progress has stalled or you've lost your motivation. Motivation is a feeling, and feelings are fickle. They come and go. Discipline is a choice. When the motivation is gone, discipline is what keeps you moving. By focusing on consistency, you take the feeling out of the equation. You don't work out because you feel like it, you work out because it is 5 p.m. and that's what you do. Consider the example of learning a new language. If you study for 6 hours once a week, you will likely forget most of what you learned by the next session. But if you study for 20 minutes every single day, the constant repetition keeps the information fresh and builds a deep, lasting understanding. The consistency of the small daily effort far outweighs the intensity of the occasional long session. Now we move to the next point, addressing the relationship between discipline and the concept of detachment. In high-pressure situations, the book teaches that the disciplined mind must practice detachment. This is the ability to step back, both mentally and emotionally, from the chaos of the moment to see the bigger picture. When you are in the middle of a stressful situation, your vision narrows. You get target fixated on one small problem, and you lose sight of everything else happening around you. This leads to poor decision-making and panic. The value of detachment is that it allows you to remain calm and objective. By physically or mentally stepping back, you can observe the situation as if you were an outside spectator. This allows you to see the gaps in your plan, the movements of your competitors, or the real source of a conflict. It is a form of mental discipline that requires you to suppress your immediate emotional reactions, like anger, fear, or frustration, in favor of a cold, tactical analysis. The book explains that the more chaotic the environment, the more important detachment becomes. A leader who is screaming and panicking is useless to their team. A leader who is calm, quiet, and observing is the one who will find the way out. This is a skill that must be practiced in small ways every day. When someone cuts you off in traffic or an email makes you angry, the disciplined response is to detach, breathe, and choose a rational response rather than an emotional one. A practical example is a heated argument with a partner or colleague. The natural impulse is to argue back, to be right, and to let your emotions flare. But the disciplined person detaches. They realize that winning the argument is less important than solving the problem or maintaining the relationship. They step back, listen, and respond with a calm, focused perspective that de-escalates the tension. Now we move to the next point, looking at how to balance this intense focus on discipline with the need for recovery and long-term health. While the book is largely about pushing yourself, it also acknowledges the necessity of disciplined recovery. This might sound like a contradiction, but it actually fits perfectly into the overall philosophy. If you push yourself to the point of a catastrophic injury or a complete mental breakdown, you are no longer disciplined, you are being reckless. Recovery is not slacking off, it is a tactical necessity to ensure you can continue the fight tomorrow. This means being disciplined about your sleep. Sleep is not a luxury, it is the primary way your brain and body repair themselves. The book argues that you should aim for the highest quality of sleep possible, even if the quantity is sometimes limited. It also means being disciplined about active recovery, things like stretching, mobility work, and proper hydration. You treat your recovery with the same seriousness that you treat your training. You don't just crash on the couch, you take intentional steps to help your body bounce back. The importance of this is longevity. The goal isn't to be disciplined for a month or a year, it's to be disciplined for a lifetime. If you ignore the signs of overtraining or chronic stress, you are essentially sabotaging your future self. A disciplined person knows when they are truly redlining and has the self-awareness to throttle back just enough to avoid a breakdown, without using it as an excuse to be lazy. Imagine an elite athlete. They don't just train hard, they are also the most disciplined people in the world when it comes to their sleep schedules, their physical therapy, and their downtime. They know that if they don't recover, they can't perform. In the same way, a disciplined professional or parent must ensure they are refueling so they can show up at their best for their responsibilities. Now we move to the next point, dealing with the internal dialogue and the power of the will. Ultimately, everything discussed in the book comes down to the will, the internal engine that drives all human action. The book describes the will as a muscle that must be exercised. Every time you make a disciplined choice, you are strengthening your will. Every time you give in to a temptation or an excuse, your will gets a little bit weaker. The goal is to reach a state where your will is so strong that it becomes the dominant force in your life, overriding fear, fatigue, and doubt. This is important because, in the end, you are the only one who can save you. There is no external force that can give you discipline. It is a deeply personal, internal battle that never truly ends. The book emphasizes that you must stay on the warpath. This doesn't mean you are literally at war, but that you maintain a warrior mindset, a state of constant readiness, and a refusal to settle for mediocrity. You are in a constant struggle against your own inner weakling, and the will is your primary weapon. The power of the will is what allows people to achieve the impossible. It's what allows a person to keep moving when their legs are screaming to stop, or to stay focused on a goal for years without seeing immediate results. It is the core of human resilience. By focusing on the daily, small victories of discipline, you are building a will that can eventually withstand the greatest storms of life. A relatable example is the act of finishing a task when you are 90% done. That last 10% is often the hardest. Most people slow down or start to cut corners. But the person with a discipline will push harder at the end. They ensure the job is finished perfectly, not because someone is watching, but because their own will demands it. Now we move to the next point, where we examine the relationship between discipline and the concept of nature versus nurture. The book addresses the common excuse that some people are just born disciplined while others are not. It firmly rejects this idea, stating that discipline is a skill. While genetics might play a small role in our baseline tendencies, discipline is something that is learned, practiced, and refined. It is a nurtured trait that anyone can develop, regardless of their background or past failures. This removes the "I'm just not a disciplined person" excuse from the conversation. This is vital because it gives hope and agency to anyone who feels like they are currently lacking in this area. It means that your past does not define your future. You can start building the discipline muscle today, starting with the very next choice you make. The book suggests that by treating discipline as a skill, you take the emotion and the identity out of it. You don't have to feel like a disciplined person to start doing disciplined things. You just start practicing the skill, and eventually, the identity follows the action. The development of this skill follows the same rules as any other. You start with the basics and gradually increase the difficulty. You don't start by trying to run a marathon, you start by walking around the block. You don't start by trying to write a book, you start by writing a paragraph. By successfully completing small, disciplined tasks, you build the confidence and the skill level to take on much larger challenges. For example, if someone has struggled with their weight their entire life, they might believe they simply don't have the discipline to be fit. But if they view discipline as a skill, they can start by simply drinking more water or cutting out one sugary snack. Once they master that small skill, they move to the next. Over time, they realize they have learned how to be disciplined, and their entire life changes as a result. Now we move to the next point, which discusses the importance of simplicity in the disciplined life. In a world filled with complex advice and endless options, the book advocates for the power of simplicity. The most effective plans are usually the simplest ones. Complexity creates confusion, and confusion creates a space for excuses to grow. When a plan is too complicated, it's easy to find a reason why it can't work today or why you need to do more research before starting. A disciplined life is one that is stripped down to the essentials. This is important because it allows for immediate action. The book's advice is often just go. Don't wait for the perfect plan, the perfect gear, or the perfect weather. If the goal is to get fit, the simple plan is work out every day. Eat healthy food. If the goal is to be more productive, the simple plan is wake up early. Do the work. By focusing on the fundamental principles and ignoring the noise, you can direct all your energy toward execution rather than planning. Simplicity also applies to your physical environment. The book suggests that a cluttered space leads to a cluttered mind. By keeping your surroundings clean and organized, you remove distractions and create an environment that supports focus. This is a form of discipline that pays dividends in mental clarity. You don't need the latest gadgets or the most expensive equipment. You need a clear goal and the will to pursue it. A simple example of this is the workout of the day. You don't need a complex 12-week program with 100 different variables. You can get an incredible workout just by doing push-ups, pull-ups, and running. The simplicity of the movements ensures that you can do them anywhere, at any time, leaving no room for the excuse that you can't get to the gym. Now we move to the next point, exploring how discipline creates a sense of fearlessness. One of the most profound side effects of a disciplined life is the development of a certain type of fearlessness. This isn't the absence of fear, but rather the ability to function effectively in spite of it. When you are disciplined, you have a deep reservoir of self-confidence that comes from having faced and overcome hundreds of small challenges. You know that you can handle discomfort, you know that you can endure pain, and you know that you can find a way through obstacles. This makes the unknown far less terrifying. This is important because fear is often what stops people from pursuing their dreams or standing up for what they believe in. They fear failure, they fear judgment, or they fear the hard work involved. But for the disciplined person, hard work is their daily reality. Failure is just a good opportunity to learn. Judgment from others matters less than the judgment they have of themselves when they look in the mirror. By mastering yourself, you lose the fear of things you cannot control. The book suggests that true confidence isn't something you can fake with positive thinking. It is something you earn through your actions. When you know you've done the work, when you know you've prepared, and when you know you've been disciplined, you have a right to be confident. That earned confidence acts as a shield against fear. You become willing to take calculated risks and step into the arena because you trust your own ability to perform when it counts. Think of a student who has studied every single night for weeks leading up to an exam. They might still feel a bit of nervous energy, but they aren't afraid of the test. They know they've done the work. Compare that to the student who tried to cram the night before. That student is filled with fear because they know they lack the discipline to be truly prepared. Discipline is the cure for that kind of fear. Now we move to the next point, focusing on the concept of the internal critic. A central part of the discipline process is learning how to deal with your internal critic, that voice we all have that tells us we aren't good enough or that we should just quit. The book teaches that you shouldn't try to silence this voice entirely. Instead, you should use it as a tool for extreme self-assessment. The key is to be brutally honest with yourself without falling into despair. You must be your own harshest critic so that you can identify your weaknesses and fix them before the world does. This is critical because if you are soft on yourself, you will never improve. If you make excuses for your failures, you are essentially giving yourself permission to fail again. A disciplined person listens to the internal critic when it says, "You didn't give your best effort today," and instead of getting depressed, they say, "You're right. I'll do better tomorrow." They use that critical voice as a compass to point them toward the areas where they need more discipline. The book emphasizes that this self-assessment must be constant. You don't just arrive at being disciplined and then stop. Every day is a new assessment. You have to prove yourself to yourself every single morning. This keeps you humble and prevents the complacency that leads to weakness. By being your own toughest inspector, you ensure that you are always operating at a high standard, even when no one else is watching. A relatable example is the post-game analysis that athletes or professionals perform. They look at the video or the data and they don't look for what they did well, they look for the mistakes. They are hypercritical of their own performance. This isn't because they hate themselves, it's because they want to be the best. They have the discipline to look at their own flaws with a clear eye so they can eliminate them. Now we move to the next point, where we discuss the idea of the path and what it means to live this way forever. The culmination of these ideas is what the book refers to as the path. Living a disciplined life isn't a goal you reach, it is a way of being that you inhabit. There is no finish line. The freedom you gain isn't a place where you get to stop being disciplined, it is the freedom to keep moving, to keep growing, and to keep facing bigger and better challenges. The path is where you find your true purpose and your true self. This is important because it changes the way you view success. Success isn't a trophy or a bank account balance. Success is the fact that you stayed on the path today. It's the knowledge that you didn't give in, that you did the work, and that you are stronger today than you were yesterday. This makes success something that is entirely within your control. No one can take away your discipline. Even if you lose everything else, if you have your discipline, you can rebuild. The book warns that it is easy to fall off the path. Life is full of temptations, distractions, and easy exits. But it also makes it clear that you can always get back on. All it takes is one disciplined choice. You don't have to wait for Monday, or the first of the month, or a sign. You just make the next right choice, and you are back on the path. It is a journey of 1,000 miles that is made one disciplined step at a time. Imagine a mountain climber. The freedom they seek is the summit. But the only way to get there is through the discipline of every single step, every breath, and every movement of their hands. If they stop being disciplined, they fall. The summit is just a moment, but the path of the climb is where they truly live. In the same way, the disciplined life is not about the destination, but the quality of the journey itself. This leads us into a discussion on a specific mental posture the book advocates for, the aggressive mindset. It is important to clarify that, in this context, being aggressive does not mean being angry, loud, or hostile toward others. Instead, it refers to a proactive, forward-leaning approach to every task and every problem. It is about attacking life rather than letting life attack you. It is the refusal to sit back and wait for things to happen. This mindset is crucial because it counters the natural human tendency toward passivity. Most people wait for the perfect moment, for more information, or for someone else to take the lead. An aggressive mindset recognizes that time is an enemy and that waiting is often just a polite word for hesitating. By maintaining an aggressive posture, you ensure that you are always making moves, always closing the gap between where you are and where you want to be. Even if you make a mistake, you are making it while moving forward, which allows you to course correct much faster than if you were standing still. The importance of this proactive nature is seen in the way it creates its own opportunities. When you are aggressive in your pursuit of a goal, you stumble upon solutions that a passive person would never find. You create a vortex of action that draws people and resources toward you. It's about being the person who asks the hard question, who makes the first phone call, and who takes the first step when everyone else is looking around for permission. A relatable example is the way people handle a growing list of small chores or emails. A passive mindset looks at the pile and feels overwhelmed, deciding to deal with it later. An aggressive mindset attacks the pile immediately. They don't see a to-do list, they see a series of targets. By the time the passive person has even started, the aggressive person has cleared their plate and moved on to the next objective. Now we move to the next point, which addresses the subtle and dangerous enemy of the disciplined life, complacency. The book warns that the most dangerous moment for any individual or team is not when they are failing, but when they have just achieved a major success. When you win, your ego wants to celebrate, relax, and tell you that you've arrived. This is when you are most vulnerable. Complacency is the slow rot that destroys high-performance individuals because it makes them stop doing the very things that made them successful in the first place. This concept is vital because it reminds us that discipline is a perpetual requirement. You cannot rest on your laurels. The book argues that there is no such thing as staying the same. You are either getting better or you are getting worse. If you stop pushing, if you stop being disciplined because you think you've done enough, you have already started the slide toward mediocrity. The only way to guard against complacency is to maintain a white belt mentality, the idea that you are always a student, always have room to improve, and always have more work to do. This relates back to the idea of the internal critic we discussed earlier. You use that critic to prevent yourself from becoming satisfied. Satisfaction is the death of progress. By staying hungry and staying focused on the next mission, you ensure that your past successes don't become the reason for your future failures. You treat every day as day one. For example, think of a business that dominates its market for a decade. Because they are at the top, they might stop innovating or stop providing the excellent customer service that got them there. They become complacent. Suddenly, a small, hungry startup, one that is disciplined and aggressive, comes along and takes their place. The large company didn't lose because they lacked resources, they lost because they lost their discipline. Now we move to the next point, where we look at the practical implementation of discipline through standard operating procedures, or SOPs. The book suggests that for most of the recurring tasks in our lives, we shouldn't have to think at all. We should have a standard way of doing things that is optimized for efficiency and effectiveness. By creating these systems, you free up your brain to focus on the truly complex problems that require creative thinking. The reasoning here is based on the idea of decision fatigue. Every choice you make throughout the day, no matter how small, drains a little bit of your mental energy. If you have to decide what to wear, what to eat, what time to work out, and which email to answer first, you will be mentally exhausted before you even get to your most important work. SOPs eliminate these low-value decisions. You have a set routine for your morning, a set routine for your gym sessions, and a set routine for how you start your workday. The importance of these procedures is that they provide a baseline of performance. Even on your worst day, when you are tired or stressed, you can still execute your SOPs. They act as a safety net for your discipline. When you don't know what to do next, you simply look at the procedure. This creates a highly organized life where nothing important is forgotten, and energy is never wasted on reinventing the wheel. A relatable example is the pre-flight checklist used by pilots. No matter how many thousands of hours a pilot has flown, they still go through the same simple checklist every single time they get into the cockpit. They don't rely on their memory or their feeling of the day. They follow the SOP to ensure total safety and efficiency. You can apply this same logic to your own life by having a checklist for your morning routine or for your end-of-day wrap-up at the office. Now we move to the next point, which discusses the specific and powerful relationship between discipline and stress. The book offers a unique perspective on how to handle the pressure and anxiety that come with a high-stakes life. It argues that the best way to manage stress is not through relaxation techniques or self-care in the traditional sense, but through the discipline of preparation and action. Stress, according to this philosophy, often comes from a lack of control or a lack of readiness. This is a critical insight because it shifts the focus from managing the feeling of stress to managing the source of it. If you are stressed about a presentation, the disciplined response is to practice it 50 more times. If you are stressed about your health, the disciplined response is to clean up your diet and go for a run. By taking action, you regain a sense of control over your environment, which naturally lowers your stress levels. Action is the antidote to anxiety. Furthermore, the book emphasizes that physical discipline helps regulate the body's stress response. Regular, intense exercise trains your nervous system to handle physical stress, which translates into an increased ability to handle mental and emotional stress. When you are used to the stress of a heavy set of squats or a long run, the stress of a difficult conversation or a tight deadline feels much more manageable. You have built the capacity to remain calm under fire. Consider a person who is constantly worried about their finances. They might try to de-stress by watching TV or going on a vacation they can't afford. This is a lack of discipline. The disciplined person faces the stress head-on. They sit down, look at their bank statements, create a strict budget, and find ways to increase their income. The moment they have a plan and start executing it, their stress begins to dissipate because they are no longer a victim, they are a participant in the solution. Now we move to the next point, exploring the idea of the power of now. While many philosophies talk about being present, this book applies that concept to the execution of your goals. It argues that the most important moment in your life is the one happening right now. Procrastination is the thief of life, and the only way to kill it is through immediate action. If there is something that needs to be done, the disciplined response is to do it immediately. The importance of this immediate action rule is that it prevents the buildup of mental weight. Every task you put off becomes a tiny open loop in your brain that consumes energy. When you have 20 things you've been meaning to do, you feel heavy and sluggish. By adopting a do-it-now policy for small tasks and a start-now policy for large ones, you keep your mental slate clean. This creates a sense of lightness and speed in everything you do. This also relates to the idea of the negotiator we mentioned earlier. The longer you wait to start a task, the more time that internal voice has to talk you out of it. If you decide to go for a run and you do it the second you think of it, the negotiator doesn't have a chance to speak. If you wait 20 minutes, the negotiator will give you a list of 10 reasons why you should stay on the couch. Speed of execution is a form of discipline that bypasses your own internal resistance. A simple example of this is the 2-minute rule. If a task takes less than 2 minutes, like washing a dish, sending a quick confirmation email, or hanging up a coat, you do it the moment it arises. By never letting these small things pile up, you never have to deal with the stress of a messy house or a cluttered inbox. You maintain order through the discipline of the present moment. Now we move to the next point, looking at how to maintain discipline in communication and human relationships. While much of the book is about self-mastery, it also touches upon how we interact with others. It suggests that discipline is required to be a good listener, a clear communicator, and a reliable partner. In communication, discipline means choosing your words carefully, controlling your emotions, and ensuring that your message is heard and understood. This is important because poor communication is the root cause of most conflicts and failures in teams and families. It takes discipline to stop talking and truly listen to what someone else is saying, especially if you disagree with them. It takes discipline to stay calm when someone is being irrational. By being disciplined in your communication, you become a stabilizing force in your environment. People learn that they can rely on you to be objective, honest, and composed, regardless of the situation. The book also emphasizes the discipline of clarity. Vague instructions or half-hearted promises are a sign of a lack of discipline. A disciplined person says what they mean and does what they say. They are precise. This precision builds trust. When people know that your word is a contract, your influence and your ability to lead others increase significantly. You don't have to convince people to follow you if your history of disciplined action and clear communication has already proven your worth. Think of a manager who gives a different set of instructions every day because they haven't disciplined their own thoughts. Their team is constantly confused and frustrated. Now, think of a manager who is disciplined. They take the time to think through the objective, they communicate it clearly, and they don't change the plan unless it's absolutely necessary. The disciplined manager creates a high-performing team because they provide the structure and clarity that everyone else can build upon. Now we move to the next point, which is the final major concept of the summary, the dichotomy of discipline and flexibility. This is perhaps the most nuanced idea in the book. While we have talked about rules, SOPs, and strict routines, the book also warns against being rigid. True discipline includes the discipline to be flexible when the situation changes. A plan is a guide, not a suicide pact. If the environment shifts and your plan no longer works, the disciplined response is to adapt immediately, not to stubbornly stick to a failing strategy. This is vital because the world is unpredictable. If you are so disciplined that you cannot change, you are fragile. You will break when things don't go according to your routine. The highest form of discipline is being able to maintain your core principles, like hard work, ownership, and integrity, while being completely fluid in your tactics. This is what allows a disciplined person to thrive in chaos. They have the internal structure that stays solid while their external actions adapt to whatever challenges arise. The importance of this balance is seen in high-pressure professions like the military or emergency services. They have the most disciplined training and the most rigorous SOPs, but they also train specifically for contingencies, for when things go wrong. They are disciplined enough to follow the plan, but they are also disciplined enough to recognize when the plan is broken and a new course of action is required. This flexible discipline is what leads to true mastery. An example of this is a person who has a strict morning workout routine. One morning, they wake up to find their basement is flooded. A rigid person might get angry and stressed because they've missed their workout, wasting time complaining about the disruption. A disciplined and flexible person recognizes that the mission has changed. They immediately switch gears, handle the flood with the same intensity they would have given to the gym, and perhaps find a way to get a quick workout in later that night. They don't let the change in routine break their spirit. We have covered a vast landscape of principles, from the paradoxical nature of freedom to the tactical execution of your morning routine. As we bring this exploration of discipline equals freedom to a close, it is worth reflecting on the central transformation this book demands of its readers. It is a transformation of the self, from a creature of impulse and excuse to a person of will and action. The final message of Jocko Willink's work is not one of completion, but of continuation. There is no point in your life where you can say, "I am disciplined enough," and finally relax. The world is constantly changing, and your own internal negotiator is always looking for a way back into the driver's seat. Therefore, the conclusion of this philosophy is simply to get after it. It is a call to take everything we have discussed, the ownership, the aggression, the preparation, and the humility, and apply it to the very next second of your life. This is important because it grounds all these high-level concepts in reality. Philosophy without action is just a daydream. The real power of these ideas is only realized when they are tested in the heat of daily struggle. Whether you are facing a massive career change or just trying to get out of bed 5 minutes earlier, the path is the same. It requires you to look at your situation, take total responsibility for it, and then move forward with an aggressive, disciplined spirit. The ultimate liberty described in these pages is the freedom from yourself. When you are disciplined, you are no longer a victim of your own laziness, your own fears, or your own bad habits. You gain the freedom to be who you want to be, to go where you want to go, and to achieve what you want to achieve. It is a hard-earned freedom, paid for with the sweat of your brow and the strength of your will, but it is the only kind of freedom that truly lasts. As you move forward from this summary, remember that the warpath is always open. It doesn't matter what happened yesterday, or how many times you've fallen off the path in the past. What matters is what you do right now. The alarm has gone off, the mission is clear, and the only thing standing between you and your freedom is the discipline to take the first step. Stay on the path, keep your head up, and never stop moving forward.